Since the dawn of time, sports media has been stuck in a vicious cycle of monotony and Skip Bayless. Then one day, three brave souls embarked on a journey to change all of that. Welcome to the Comeback Kid.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this edition of The Comeback Kid. I am your host, Ben Friedel, and alongside me, as always, Nate Wiggins, Matt Hendrickson. Before I even ask you guys how you're doing, how was that intro? Oh my gosh.
Oh man, I loved it. That was tremendous. Shout out to Seth, who helped us make that. That was awesome.
Yep, Seth Lou, station manager here at USD TV. He produces his own music, and he's like, hey, I like you guys. I'm going to make these station liners for you, and wow, they came out great, right, Matt?
A single tear flows down my cheek every single time I hear that. That is both intimidating and probably the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
Yes, I think intimidating would definitely be a good word for it. So, you guys have a good weekend?
I've had better weekends, but, I wasn't too stressed, so that was all right.
Yeah, I got to see Nate get all stressed out about Michigan football, so I'd say that my weekend was quite all right, and and yeah, a lot of sitting around doing nothing, but it's kind of nice not to have to worry about things for a little while.
Yeah, we're just constantly building each other up here on the Comeback Kid. If you're a regular listener, you know this all too well. I'm being sarcastic, of course. We love to disparage each other constantly. So, before we jump into our first topic, guys, let's just reiterate what we do here on the Comeback Kid. So every Monday at 9 a.m., we hope to talk about sports and stories that may not get enough attention on major sports networks. This includes soccer. I mean, I think the MLS playoffs are going on. I don't know. There was an international break in the middle there. That's pretty poorly timed, wouldn't you say, Nate?
Oh, man, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, well, anyway, so we hope to maybe sometimes talk about MLS, mostly European soccer, which is, a tad bit better. Baseball offseason, which can be really entertaining. The NHL, as well as other sports. But most importantly, we definitely want to talk about sports that we want to talk about here on the Comeback Kid. That is our true mission statement that we hope to do every single show, and we hope to bring you guys every single Monday. So, let's get right into it, guys. So, we have down the road a school. I don't know if you guys knew this. There's a school down the road. It's called San Diego State. I know, right? I mean, I've never heard of them. And apparently, their mascot is no more. The San Diego State Aztecs no longer have the Aztecs. And while their school mascot, it will still be the San Diego State Aztecs. I should reiterate this. They are getting rid of the physical mascot himself. And if you're unfamiliar with their mascot, he is a real-life person. It's not a person in a suit who runs around at formerly Qualcomm Stadium, now San Diego County Credit Union Stadium over in Mission Valley, and he's usually in pretty good shape, has no shirt. He blows on what is it, like a conch?
Yeah,
a conch shell, runs around. I don't know, he doesn't do much else. He's dressed in I guess, quote unquote, traditional Aztec attire.
Yeah, he wears like a headdress.
Yeah. So he wears a headdress, and yeah, so their mascot recently has come under fire because many people who identify with Aztec culture, or Aztec culture is a part of their historical upbringing, or part of their cultural significance, like specifically Mexico or other Latin American countries hold the Aztec culture and people in high regard in their personal histories. Those people were not too thrilled with the mascot. I think especially in recent years, because I think social and cultural acumen for certain social justice issues has increased over the past even 3-4 years about issues such as these. So to recap what went on, the University Senate at San Diego State overwhelmingly voted to retire the Aztec warrior mascot and all related symbols by a vote of 52-14. This vote was comprised of professors, lecturers, coaches, staff members, and students. I think a lot of people just immediately assume that it was students voting on this, but no, it was a collective vote amongst a lot of staff and different people involved at the university. And basically what this vote did was not only is it retiring the mascot, it is calling away with the human representation of basically everything like Aztec related almost, which includes spears and other weapons that, quote unquote, I'm quoting the San Diego Union Tribune here, weapons that connote barbaric representations of the Aztec culture. So that's a lot of background there, but that's basically the situation that's going on not even 15 minutes down the road from us. The question I have for you guys is, was this a good decision for San Diego State?
Well, just for a little context, I grew up a San Diego State fan, and so like the Aztec Warrior was like, he was just like the coolest thing ever to me. But I think that this was a good decision, particularly when you talk about like the barbaric representations, because the idea of natives in the Americas being barbaric was like propaganda for Europeans, and so justified their colonization. And so I think to represent the Aztec warrior as a like sort of barbaric figure, I think that it's good to get away from that, because you're getting away from this European colonialist propaganda.
I also think it's a great decision. What I think is very important about this decision, and you touched on it, Ben, is that this was a collective vote. It wasn't just the students or people that you would automatically assume would be more passionate about this. It was faculty. I would assume some key donors or board members were also involved in this vote. The one thing that I'm concerned about is, why is this happening in the middle of the school year? Like, why is this happening in the midst of a fairly successful football season, and as basketball season starting up? Why is this happening right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, Matt. So, just to reiterate, we are in November. This isn't the summer. This isn't the start of the school year. And so that begs the question. You're in the middle of a fairly successful football season. Your basketball season just kicked off, arguably San Diego State's most successful sport. And with all of these great athletic-related news topics going on at San Diego State, they decide to get rid of their mascot, which, although all of us are somewhat on the same page that we, think it's somewhat of a good decision. I think a lot of people who, or a lot of alumni and people who have grown up with the mascot have expressed a lot of outrage at this, because they don't understand, like why an Aztec would be removed, especially since an Aztec warrior amongst many circles could be seen as like a symbol of pride, right, Nate?
Yeah. I actually I'm friends with a lot of SDSU alumni on Facebook, and I see a lot of their posts, and they're a bit of an older bunch, so they are pretty upset about this. But I think what I would say to them if I was the university is like, look, times are changing. This something like that may have flown, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, heck, even 5 years ago. This wasn't even a discussion. But now I think with our current political climate, and I think just the racism that we see in everyday life, I think that this was pretty, like you said, the timing is a bit weird, but it makes sense just with everything that's going on socially, politically in our country.
I would definitely agree with that. Socially and politically, we're in a whole new ball game, so to speak. Like, this is a completely different era that we're living in versus, the generation before us or the generation even before that. It's an interesting conundrum, because a lot of alumni donors potentially could be involved with such, they could be outraged to the point where they stop giving money to a program. I don't anticipate that being too much of a burden for San Diego State with the size of that school. But to go off of your point, there is a person, I'm not going to mention any names, but someone affiliated with USD who I came into contact with. And to your point about, I think, cultural sensitivity, his point was, and he's an older gentleman, he was saying that he was outraged by this decision, and I'm roughly paraphrasing here, but he was saying that the Aztec people are dead, so why should anyone care? And that was like, he's a person of like authority, so I didn't want to call him out, and my grade may or may not be relying on his opinion. However, I was like, what the heck? That is such an insensitive comment, because you drive 20 minutes south of where we are to Mexico, and that is a culture that even if you drive around the city of Tijuana, you see like Aztec-related architecture, you see Aztec-related symbols of pride. And so just writing off an entire culture just because it's quote unquote non-existent anymore, or like the original people don't exist anymore, I think is very insensitive. And I think that is definitely a lens that some people are taking in this argument.
That is such an unbelievably ignorant take. And I mean, yeah, the Aztec people are gone, but let's think why they're gone. It was because Europeans came to Latin America, came to Mexico, brought with them diseases, and wiped out the entire indigenous population by either disease or just slaughtering them. So, yeah, the Aztec culture, the Aztec people are gone, but they're gone because of genocide.
Definitely. It's a very interesting dilemma that they have going on, and it's going to be interesting to see moving forward, I think, what they replace their mascot with, if they even do replace the mascot, or like the Union Tribune mentioned, they're maybe planning on getting rid of like all like spear related symbols, and their normal SD logo has a spear on it. So would we see potentially a redesigning of the logo that would appear on football helmets, so on and so forth? So it's going to be really interesting to stay up to date with that story as it moves forward. And I think in somewhat related news, let's spin this toward USD, guys. Let's look internally here. So we have a mascot here. His name is Diego Torero, right? He is is he Spanish? Is he a Spanish bullfighter? He's a bullfighter.
Spanish.
So I guess hailing from Spain, but he's a cartoon, right? He's a cartoon caricature of a Spanish bullfighter. So my question to you guys, since San Diego State has taken these steps by an overwhelming majority, actually, to get rid of a person who many think, or a mascot who many think represents a symbol of pride for the Aztec culture, why the heck has no changes happened regarding Diego the Torero?
Talk about being culturally insensitive. I mean, bullfighting is still such a sensitive issue wherever you go, and especially, we always say this, but 20 minutes down south, this is something that happens, but we're just making a joke out of it, basically, having Diego around. And then also talking about, you said, overwhelming majority vote in a huge public university. What is a small, private, change-making university doing, not having this changed already? I think that this is probably a discussion that's being had right now as we speak. I'm sure the right people saw that San Diego State had changed their mascot, or are in the process of changing their mascot, or really just rebranding. Hopefully this is a conversation that's being had right now, especially since this is something that we like to take pride in, being more progressive than a lot of schools. So hopefully this happens soon.
So I think the reason why there hasn't been a change with Diego is, personally, I think people just don't care enough. I think that, with San Diego State, because their athletics programs have been so successful over the past couple of years, and because they have this huge alumni population in San Diego, I'm sure that they may have been getting pressure from people outside the university that were saying, hey, this needs to be something you look into. But I think here at USD, people just don't care enough. The students don't care enough. The alumni don't care enough. So I think that's why we haven't seen a change with Diego Torero. But I mean, Diego Torero, like, just the mascot himself is like kind of creepy, honestly. Yeah. So I wish that they would change it. Just A, because it's pretty insensitive, and B, because he's just creepy.
Yeah, and I think your guys' point about, like, we just don't care enough, I want to dig into a little bit of that. Like, why don't we care enough? Is it a question of, I think immediately what comes to mind is our school, just demographic-wise, is very white. We'll just say it. We go to a very white school in terms of, like, I don't know the exact percentage, but a larger percentage of our school is white versus, San Diego State. We'll use that as a comparison. San Diego State is a very diverse university. I think that plays in part with the tuition dollar amount that they have over at San Diego State. Therefore, I want to pose the question to you guys: does this have to do this lack of care in terms of cultural sensitivity have to do with our demographics, not only within our student body but within our administration potentially?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a cultural thing, because it's interesting to me how the school prides itself on trying to be like this progressive institution, and the idea of being a change maker, inclusivity, all those types of things. But I honestly, as a minority on this campus, I don't feel like the school does enough in terms of trying to be like inclusive, trying to be change makers. And I'll give Dr. Harris credit. He's done a lot, because what I've heard is that before him it was very, very bad. But I feel like the university is like goes out of their way to try and be inclusive and goes out of their way to try and be like show how like progressive we are, when in reality that's honestly making things worse. And so when I applied to this school, I was called in for an interview, and one of the questions that they asked me was like, well, how would you feel about going to a predominantly white institution? And I said that these are my feelings about it. And then the next question they asked was that, okay, what are the steps that we should take in order to try and diversify our campus? And at the time, I didn't think about it too heavily, like what these questions really meant. But thinking back on it now, I almost feel like that doing something like that is one of those things where it's almost like the "I'm not racist, I have a black friend" kind of line of thinking. It's like, hey, well, clearly we're not racist because, like, hey, we are, we're admitting black students, and if you go on the website, there's like pictures of minority kids, but like in reality, like, what is the school actually doing? Am I making sense here?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
okay,
no, that definitely makes sense. So in your guys' opinions, would maybe not completely getting rid of Diego the Torero, or at least having some sort of alterations to our mascot, would that be a step in the right direction in order for the school to, live, like, not just be all talk, like to live up to the words of being a change maker and being inclusive?
Yeah. I think, like you said, just an alteration. I'm not saying, let's, we don't need to make any huge radical changes yet, but I think that, taking small steps, I think would go a long way in terms of working to change kind of the culture of the campus.
Definitely. Great stuff, guys. So I think this conversation could be extended even further, because this is a conversation that has really been prevalent in recent years on a professional scale, with a lot of different professionals teams. There's the Cleveland Indians, which that name has been called into question recently, especially with their success reaching the World Series and them being on a global stage. I feel like that definitely spurred some kind of argument as to should there be some alterations. We've talked about this. We think they should switch to, we already have an idea for what they could switch to. We think they could go to the Cleveland Tribe, because the word tribe is a positively and accurately connotative Native American terminology. So, Cleveland is one team. Another team is the NFL team in Washington. I don't even feel comfortable saying that team name out loud, because their team name, Nate, you were telling me, is it's not exactly the same, but has some sort of cultural relevance, or similarities to the African American population with the N-word, potentially. So for me, why the heck does the team in Washington still have that name? And then there are teams like the Chiefs, which have, a lot of people think they actually do the play off of the theme of Native Americans correctly. However, I want to get your guys' take. Are there any teams that I haven't mentioned or teams I have mentioned that should make proactive changes immediately, gradually? Give me your guys' take.
Well, I think that the Indians, I think that, we talked about the Tribe. I think that would be just a pretty good name for the team. And I mean, they already got rid of Chief Wahoo, and that was actually interesting. I didn't even notice that they got rid of Chief Wahoo until like halfway through the season. I was on Twitter and I saw like an Indian tweet, and I was like, wait a minute, what happened to Chief Wahoo? It's just the C now. I hadn't even noticed that they had gotten rid of it because they did it so casually. They kind of just phased it out. Like you said with the Washington football team, I stopped saying that name like 4 years ago, because I actually heard an interview with Champ Bailey, the former NFL cornerback, and he was saying that, that word is pretty much not exactly the same, but it's pretty much the same thing as them being the Washington N-words. And so as soon as I heard that, I was like, I actually did my research, and I was like, wow, that term, those terms are pretty much identical. And so after that, I was like, yeah, there's no chance I'm going to be saying that word anymore. I think I made my point pretty clear.
I think some other teams that do their logos or mascots right are Florida State Seminoles. We talked about that they have a relationship with the Seminole tribe there. And I would assume that the North Dakota Sioux have to do a lot of the same, just considering that, especially everything that's going on in North Dakota right now. So there are some collegiate teams that are doing well with their mascots and probably won't see a change anytime soon. But that's just because those relationships have been maintained for long enough now, where it is a sign of respect and they're doing that in the right way. I don't think I need to say anything else about Washington. Obviously, I think what surprises me is that it's been there for so long in our nation's capital. Like, what if this was Kentucky? It'd be like a different story. Like, well, of course, it's Kentucky, but this is our nation's capital, where a lot of things are under a big focal point. But I guess the team names weren't even that important. We have the Washington Capitals. Like, it could be something as easy as that. But we haven't had anything change. When I'm sure enough people are mad enough about this.
It's going to be very interesting to see moving forward how this, I believe, friction between, I don't even want to say new school thinking, but maybe more empathetic thinking is pushing back on stubborn traditionalism and how people are just resistant to change just for the fact that it's changed, and they're completely blind to the reality that, teams such as the NFL team in Washington, that team name is just obscenely offensive. So great stuff, you guys. It's very, very interesting to see what's going on down at San Diego State. It's really interesting to see if us as a campus here at USD are going to make any proactive changes, and if the larger sphere of professional sports will continue to move in the right direction. So great stuff, you guys. When we come back, we're going to discuss a busy week of soccer. Soccer is back from the international break. Arsenal, baby, we did it. We beat Tottenham over the weekend. I can't believe it. We'll talk all about it when we get back. Stay tuned, you guys. Welcome back to the Comeback Kid, everyone. When we were last with you, we were discussing the changes to the mascot down the street over at San Diego State, and now we turn our attention to soccer, Nate. This past Saturday, we got up at what time? 3:45?
3:45,
3:45 a.m., not p.m., a.m. Went over to Shakespeare's Pub and Grill down in Mission Hills here in San Diego, and they show Premier League soccer every Saturday and Sunday morning. We got up for the 4:30 kickoff time for the North London Derby, Arsenal-Tottenham. What a game. As an Arsenal fan, I will admit my bias before we even start this segment. I am so happy, especially since we've played so horribly all season, and then we finally, not even luck, our entire form of play could not have been at a worse point, I feel like, going into a North London Derby, even in the last 10 to 15 years, especially with how great Tottenham have been doing. They beat Real Madrid the other week, and Arsenal can barely go to Red Star Belgrade and get a result, while Tottenham's over in Spain or over beating Real Madrid. So, what a game, Nate! What a game! I'll just let you take it from here.
Yeah. So we were up in the wee hours of the morning, but it was fun, and I did not think Arsenal. Okay, I thought Arsenal had a chance, but I thought, look, Arsenal needs to play a perfect game, and Tottenham needs to make some mistakes. Just going on how their form has been recently. Finally, Arsene Wenger started Lacazette, Ozil, and Sanchez in a big match. Finally, he did something smart, and they delivered. Ozil, great performance. Sanchez, great performance. I was watching Arsenal Fan TV yesterday, and Troop said he needed a stat nav to find Dele Alli and Harry Kane, because those guys were non-existent. I think Kane maybe had one chance. Dele Alli, I don't know where he was on Saturday, but he was not at the Emirates. And this idea, we talked previously about this sort of idea of a power shift in North London. So I'm going to go back to you, Ben. Do you think that this result changes that power shift? Because to me, I actually did some research on the history of the North London Derby, and yes, Tottenham has been better over these last few years. But throughout history, Arsenal has dominated. You know, they've got more trophies. Tottenham has never won the Premier League. Arsenal's won the Premier League. And so I saw it as kind of like sort of like the Lakers-Clippers rivalry, where, yeah, the Clippers may be better now, but LA always has been and always will be a Lakers town. So, you know, I'm going to take it to you. Like, do you think that power shift is still happening, or do you think, you know, North London belongs to Arsenal?
I definitely think that, and I'm trying to be objective here, that yes, a power shift is happening due to the modern state of soccer and the amount of money in it now versus even 10 years ago. When Arsenal was at the peak of its powers, you know, for the first 100 years of this rivalry, and now Tottenham has recently become the dominant power, I feel like more TV revenue has been made in these 3 years, most likely, than the 100 years prior. So if we're talking financially, Tottenham has basically been gaining momentum financially in order to have the sustained success that they desire moving forward. So under the current lens of where the Premier League is, yes, I believe there is a power shift. However, to your point about like the Lakers versus Clippers, I think that's very comparable here, because Arsenal, and I was watching Arsenal fan TV as well, and it was interesting to see them being positive for once, but I think they said it well. They're still the biggest team in North London. They're still the biggest club, and I think that will still be the case no matter, even if, let's say, Tottenham makes like a Champions League semifinal this year. Arsenal will still be the bigger club due to both the sustained history as well as their success head-to-head, even in, you know, this year. Because, look, we took it to Tottenham this year, and, you know, that is, I think, a real testament as to we aren't as far off as we think we are. However, there is still one more game to play against them head-to-head this season. That's going to be in 2018, so we'll see how that game goes. So, to answer your question, I do think there is a power shift currently, but Arsenal is still the biggest team in North London. North London is red.
I think that if you're an Arsenal fan, I think that as great as that performance was, you have to be a little frustrated because you're like, why can't these guys do this every week? Like, you know, okay, they put in this great performance, you know, this week against Tottenham. Now are they going to go to, like, Brighton or, like, Huddersfield Town and lose? Like, I think you got to be frustrated if it's like, all right, let's do this every single week. If Arsenal can put in that type of performance every single week, they can challenge for a title. But the question is, you know, are we going to see that consistency, or is it going to be like that same roller coaster ride that we've seen from Arsenal over the last 2 to 3 seasons?
And Nate, I think we were talking about this the other day. I think that comes down to managerial decisions, quite honestly. I mean, both of us, all three of us are on the hashtag Wenger out train, because his managerial decisions, I feel like, are oftentimes just made completely out of spite, almost. So if Arsene Wenger can consistently play Alexis, Ozil, and Sanchez against big clubs while we still have all three, mind you, because 2 of them may as well be on their way out, then we'll hopefully see better results. I mean, you can't, not only should you be starting them consistently for the purpose of having them being used to playing with one another, because that's a huge thing in soccer, because if you have a Iwobi on the wing, that's a lot different than having Sanchez on the wing, and that, you know, can disrupt team chemistry and team flow. So consistently starting Alexis, Sanchez, and Ozil will be key. You mentioned Huddersfield Town. We play Huddersfield Town in 2 weeks. We play Burnley next week. Burnley's been a surprise in the Premier League so far, so I would, I'm not going to say that's an automatic win. However, we should be going into Huddersfield Town and beating them, especially since, you know, they're a newly promoted side. So, to your point, yes, it is very frustrating when we put in these amazing performances against Tottenham here and then go out and get shelled by Manchester City, go out and get shelled by Liverpool, and can't even hang in there with, like, Manchester United. And Manchester United's in December, so that's a whole different story. So, yeah, it's really going to be, I think the next few weeks will be crucial.
Yeah, and I think, you know, looking at the other side of this with Tottenham, kind of going into the season, there was this idea that there were two things that I heard about Tottenham going into this season, that Tottenham can't win big games and Tottenham can't win at Wembley. So I kind of thought that, you know, this match was at the Emirates, but I thought that Tottenham had finally turned a corner, you know, with the victory over Real Madrid.
At Wembley.
Yeah, they won some big games at Wembley. They had won some somewhat big games in the Premier League, and I thought, all right, you know, they finally turned a corner. I saw a stat yesterday. Under Maurice Pochettino, Tottenham, in away matches against top 6 opposition, they've played 17 matches, and they have 9 points. So that's one win under Maurice Pochettino on the road against top six clubs. And I think that kind of shows this mindset of Tottenham that it's like, I think that I don't think that they really believe that they can go to these top six clubs and win. I don't think that they really believe that they can compete with the big boys, I think that if you want to win the Premier League, you have to believe that no matter who you're playing, no matter where you're playing, you can beat them. And I don't think Tottenham has that mindset. And I think that this loss to Arsenal kind of is a huge blow to their confidence and to think like, oh, shoot, we're really not as good as we thought we were.
Definitely. You know who else might be having confidence issues? Borussia Dortmund. Sorry, Nate. The Dortmund started the season great, right out the gates, forcing themselves ahead of Bayern Munich. They were how many points clear of Bayern Munich?
5 points.
5 points clear of Bayern Munich at a very early point in the season, which was predicting to us like, wow, they could eventually, if they have a maintain consistency, they could really force themselves away from the pack. However, they've really fallen, man, and that was really evident. That was really evident against Stuttgart last Friday.
Hashtag Boz out. For those of you that don't know, Peter Boz is the manager of Borussia Dortmund in his first year, and like you said, things were going well for a while, and then this team just fell off a cliff in the Champions League and in the Bundesliga. There's a chance. I mean, it would take a miracle because Apoel would have to beat Real Madrid. But there's a chance that we might not even qualify for the Europa League because right now we're sitting level with Apoel with 2 points, and we're only ahead of them on goal differential by 2 goals. So there's a chance we could end up finishing last in our Champions League group. Right now we are 9 points below Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga race, and I think that this team has some serious defensive issues, and I think that part of that is due to Peter Bosz because his refusal to change this high line that Dortmund's been playing pretty much all year and clearly isn't working. His refusal to change is, I think, just so it's hurting Borussia Dortmund so much. This guy is not a good manager. I know why they fired Thomas Tuchel. I don't understand it. Can we please bring back Thomas Tuchel? He's not doing anything right now. He's probably just sitting on his couch laughing at how poor Borussia Dortmund's form is. Now we got issues with Aubameyang. He showed up late to training. He wasn't on the team for the Stuttgart match. Just all these sort of internal issues. He's probably going to try and leave in January. It's just a disaster right now in Dortmund.
Yeah, that's really... I didn't even realize it was that bad. It is really just not going great. You have guys like Christian Pulisic who are trying to see play meaningful games, both domestically and in the Champions League, and it looks like that Dortmund are on this downward spiral where that isn't even going to be a reality for him. Yeah, just a negative year for Christian Pulisic so far. Not qualifying for the World Cup, and then on top of his his club team just not doing well as well.
I feel bad for him because with the U.S. men's national team, he was the one guy that was putting in effort, and he's not going to be able to go to the World Cup because of the failures of 10 other guys. And then on Dortmund, he's been tremendous. Like in the match against Bayern Munich, he was tremendous against Bayern Munich. He was nutmegging Arjen Robben. He was just absolutely tremendous. He's been the most consistent player for Dortmund this year, and it's just a shame that the guys around him just aren't picking up the slack. And I think that's a shame when you're a 19-year-old kid and you're the catalyst for your club team and for your country, that these other veterans can't pick up the slack and can't bring the same energy that you're bringing. I think that's really a shame, and I think that reflects negatively on the manager. It reflected negatively on Bruce Arena, and it reflects negatively on Peter Bosz.
So Nate, given how the season has gone for Borussia Dortmund so far, how can they revive this season? Meaning, what things will Dortmund have to do in order to revive this season and make it into a successful one?
Fire Peter Bosz, but I don't think that's a realistic possibility at this point. So I think that honestly, just changing some of their defensive tactics. Enough with the high line. All right, like I understand we like to press, we like to attack, but the problem is that if you press and you attack with a high line and then you get beat, then you're toast. So I think we need to start. Let's sit back a little bit, all right? Because we don't have the best defenders in the world. So I think if we just sit back, give them a little bit more of a cushion, I think we should maybe consider making a change at goalkeeper. Roman Bürki's just been in some pretty terrible form recently, and so I think making a change at goalkeeper is something that we need to look at. Maybe going out and looking to get a defender during the January transfer window. I think that, I'm already done. We're not going to win the Bundesliga. We're done in the Champions League. In the German Cup, our next match is against Bayern Munich, so we're going to get knocked out of the German Cup. And right now, our only hope is the Europa League, and that makes me very sad. So I think that, there are certainly some changes that need to be made.
When's Royce coming back?
That is a good question. Because he tore his ACL in the German Cup final back in May. So I haven't really been seeing much about when he's coming back. I assume it'll be because what the recovery time for an ACL is about 9 months. So he could be back, around the start of 2018, which would be nice, because if we are going to be playing in the Europa League, it would be nice to have Marco Reus because he's, one of our best playmakers. And when him and Aubameyang meet up, when him and Aubameyang link up, it is absolutely beautiful. So I would have to say probably January, February, sometime around then.
Yeah, and Marco Reus is definitely a player that makes his team tick, and it's going to be interesting to see if, as you mentioned, if Dortmund go out and address some of these needs through the January transfer window, which is actually fast approaching. Mm-hmm. So today on the Comeback Kid, we thought it would be a good idea to preview the January transfer window. There's already some rumors of pre-agreed contracts and players moving. It is, for those of you who are unfamiliar with how soccer works in terms of trading players, trades don't even happen. It's players, agents will negotiate with other clubs while they're still under contract at a team, and then that other team will go and make a transfer request of a certain amount of dollars. For example, Neymar to PSG was over $200 million. So these amounts can go very, very high, and so it's going to be interesting to see if that the price of inflation of players will continue to increase in January. So I'm going to throw out some players to you guys, and then you're going to tell me A, if they stay, B, if they don't, where are they going, and C, an approximate amount for which they go for. Yeah, I'm throwing that in there. Approximate amount. So let's start. Alexis Sanchez. He is the heart and soul of my beloved Arsenal, but he in recent years has, I would say years, has really expressed his frustration with not playing meaningful soccer and expressed frustration at his teammates for not putting in enough effort. So a lot say he's as good as gone. Would you agree with that? And if so, where is he going?
Yeah, I think he's as good as gone. I thought he was going to leave during the summer transfer window. I thought that might have been something that happened at the transfer deadline. It didn't happen. Arsenal held on to him, which I thought was a pretty bad decision because I'm pretty sure in January he can leave for free, right? Is that yeah, he can leave for free. I think he's going to Manchester City. There may not be a spot for him on City, but I think with a player, when Sanchez is in form, he's as good as anyone in the world. So I think that Manchester City will find a spot for him. And I think it's just always nice to have depth, for a side like Manchester City that's going to be making a title run, going to be making a run in the Champions League. To have Alexis Sanchez just, even as depth, I think is great for City.
Yeah, Matt, what about you? Where do you think Alexis is going?
Oh, wouldn't it be something if he went to another Premier League team for free? I would not rule out a return to Barcelona. I feel like they haven't really had any solutions at the wing. We've had a lot of names kind of be tied to Barcelona, including Griezmann and Coutinho. But I don't know. I don't know if they would be the ones to go. I feel like if you want to talk about playing meaningful soccer, I feel like Sanchez might be like, hey, can I come back?
Definitely. I mean, he was at such a great situation in Barcelona, and he's now in the Europa League with Arsenal. So how the mighty have fallen in a lot of ways. You mentioned Antoine Griezmann and Philippe Coutinho. Griezmann was one of those players rumored to have a pre-agreed contract to go to Barcelona. Of course, it's never truly official until you see them in the uniform. So we'll have to wait and see about that. So do you guys think that Griezmann and Coutinho will go to Barcelona? Because I personally think they can't have both.
Yeah, that's interesting how that would work out. Especially, they got Ousmane Dembele coming back from injury. He'll be back, I think, probably around January. But I guess it goes back to that question of depth, and like you can never really have too much depth. And if you can add a couple players, but the quality of Coutinho and the quality of Griezmann, I think if you're Barcelona, it's sort of like, hey, you come here and we'll find a spot for you. We'll make it work. Barcelona, they're flying high in La Liga, much like Manchester City. They're going to be making a run at the Champions League. So I think, although they might not have, I don't think it would be smart for them to go after both. I think it's kind of maybe one or the other. I think that if you can have both, I don't know. You might as well try and see if you can get both.
So when we talk about Barcelona, I feel like you can't not talk about Real Madrid simultaneously. Gareth Bale has been rumored to be out at Real Madrid. He's had some extensive injury history ever since he's arrived at the Bernabeu and Madrid himself. And there's rumors that he's headed back to the Premier League, Nate. Where do you think he's going to end up?
Well, the rumors that I've been hearing is Manchester United. If I'm Man United, I don't understand why Man United would want to go after Gareth Bale. A guy who's just been perpetually injured, has got like you said, has had numerous injury problems since he came to Real Madrid in I think 2013. So, I've heard Manchester United, but if I was Man United, I would say, hey, I think we're fine. We don't need a perpetually injured Gareth Bale who's constantly out of form. If we want to contend for the Premier League or for Champions League. I think if you're Real Madrid, then yeah, you want to find a way to sell Gareth Bale, but the question is, is anybody going to be buying?
Yeah, and I think the question with Real Madrid is, should they be buying at this point? Since they are quite a few points back from Barcelona, that is a constant power struggle. When one falls behind the other instantly responds by spending millions and millions of dollars to try to catch up. And what do you think Real Madrid should do in order to regain the ground in Barcelona in the table?
Well, the problem right now is they just can't score goals, which last time I checked, scoring goals is pretty important in soccer. Benzema has been terrible. Ronaldo has been completely out of form. The only guys that have really been sort of in form are Asensio and Isco. So I think if you're Real Madrid, you got to find a way to get a playmaker. I've been hearing that Neymar to Real Madrid is potentially something that could happen.
What?
Not during the January window. Not during the January window.
He just got to Paris.
Not during the January window, but that's something that I've heard. I've also heard, Harry Kane. Like, this is stuff that wouldn't happen during the January window, but stuff could happen in the future. In terms of addressing these needs in the January transfer window, I don't really know if there's that much you can do. Just because I don't know what strikers or what money goal scorers are going to be available. That may have already agreed with contracts with other teams.
Hot take, Nate. Hot take. Neymar to Real Madrid. He literally just moved to Paris for upwards of $200 million, and then now I'm leaving again. Oh. Dang, Nate. Hey, if that were to happen, and you were to call this right here, right now, all power to you, man. You'd be like the Oracle, dude. Like, that'd be crazy. So, great stuff, you guys. That wraps up our soccer segment for today. When we come back, we're going to be talking about this offseason for baseball and a man by the name of Shohei Ohtani. Who is he? Why is he important? And why are we bringing him up? We will talk about all of that when we come back. Stay tuned, you guys.
When she was just a girl, she expected the world, but it flew away.
Welcome back to the Comeback Kid, everyone. When we were last with you, we were discussing transfer rumors in the world of soccer, and now let's move to rumors in the world of baseball. It is the baseball offseason. It is in full swing, and there's a man hailing from the country of Japan by the name of Shohei Ohtani, and in Japan, he's often referred to as Babe Ruth. So this man, he is 23 years old, Shohei Ohtani is, and he's a phenom who profiles as a future star not only on the mound but also at the plate, meaning that he is a stud pitcher and he can rake. So two-way players is something that we have not seen in baseball ever since like the dead ball era, pretty much in like the early 1900s, late 1800s. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he is able to make a splash here in the MLB. But before we get into that, let's acknowledge Giancarlo Stanton. He won the MVP this year, 59 home runs. What a season by Giancarlo. The closest MVP vote in the last 40 to 50 years. There was only like 3 points separating both Giancarlo Stanton and 2 points separating Giancarlo Stanton and Joey Votto.
Yeah, and also let's not forget Jose Altuve, the American League MVP. And I actually have a question for you guys. When was the last time that both the AL MVP and the NL MVP wore the same number?
Oh my God. Astros in 6? I don't know. I have no idea.
My guess is 2004.
It was 1990. Both Ricky Henderson and Barry Bonds both wore the number 24. I just thought that was interesting. You know, I don't know. I was watching MLB Network on Friday, and I just thought it's interesting. You know, might as well throw that question out to you guys, see if you guys knew it.
Yeah, I had zero clue. That is really interesting. Astros. I apologize to everyone at home for saying that.
That's why we're champions.
Oh no. Moving on, Shohei Ohtani. So across 5 seasons with the Nippon Ham Fighters in the Japanese League, he's put up a line of a 286 batting average, 358 on base, 500 slugging at the plate, pairing up with an ERA of 2.52 with 624 strikeouts in 543 innings. So based on those statistics, it kind of initially appears like he's a better pitcher than hitter. However, he is like a perfectly serviceable hitter, I think, in like any lineup based on those statistics. So my question to you guys is, will there be a team that takes a chance on him as a two-way player?
I think that there will be a team that takes a chance, but I don't see him working out as a two-way player just because the game is different here than it is in Japan. And I think that we can agree that like the quality of Major League Baseball is better than the quality of the Japanese leagues. And I think that's, you know, it's pretty evident when you see that the best players in Japan come here, and when a player here can't get a job, they go to Japan. So I think that I'm sure a team will give him a shot as a two-way player, but I don't think he'll be able to succeed in the way that he succeeded in Japan, just because I think the game is just more difficult over here.
I think this is the first time in a while where someone has a legitimate case of being a two-way player, as in both pitching and hitting. The last person that we saw try to do it was Betancourt of the San Diego Padres, and
That was more of a publicity stunt, though. I honestly feel like there was no chance of that working.
I'm sure it was something along the lines of that too. Just the fact that it was the San Diego Padres, it should give you all the information you need. I think the one thing that's interesting about this whole case is his age. He's only 23 years old, which means I'm not gonna even pretend that I know the international signing rules or how they work, but he's gonna be owed a lot less money if he signs now, which I think makes his value all the more competitive. And I think we're going to see teams like the Tampa Bay Rays, who normally are a smaller market club, want to go after this guy just for one, because he's going to be a great player, but also, yeah, the publicity. I mean, there you look at Tampa Bay's like average attendance, and you're like, how low can you go? You know, like it is like 2,500. You know, it's something ridiculous like that. So. I think there would be a lot of teams that are willing to take that risk with him. And hey, if hitting doesn't, pan out, then you have a really good pitcher. Like that's what it is, or vice versa. The one thing that's interesting about this case, though, is that it all goes down today. Today is the last day that teams can submit like offers that for him to be posted. So I think we'll have a lot more information for you next week for sure.
And I think bringing up Tampa Bay is very interesting. They, in their most recent first-year player draft, they drafted a player out of the University of Louisville by the name of Brendan McKay, who won the. There's an award in college baseball for best two-way player, and he was a top pick in last year's draft. I think he was the 3rd overall pick. So it's been proven that Tampa Bay is willing to risk, high-profile draft picks with this sort of risk of being a two-way player. So it'll be interesting to see if they go out into the free agent market and get Ohtani and make a similar risk with him. So are there any other teams that you guys can envision him going to?
I think Texas is another obvious candidate. I think they can outbid anyone, but I don't think this is really more of a money issue. But what I think is to their benefit is as long as the talks are heating up between them and Yu Darvish coming back, I think that's very appealing for another Japanese player to want to come and have like kind of that sense of familiarity in the clubhouse. I know Darvish is very outspoken and awesome clubhouse kind of person also, so that can be very beneficial to both players as they kind of grow together. So I think Texas would be another candidate. I would not be surprised if the Dodgers submit an offer. They feel like they can buy anyone. I make the joke with Nate a lot about how the Red Sox think they can get anybody. But if the Red Sox think they can get anybody, chances are the Dodgers probably already got that person. And we haven't really gotten there, and I don't even know if we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but Stanton is now rumored to go to the Dodgers. Like, what is going on? So I think Rangers or Dodgers. I don't know about anyone else.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for that insight. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where Ohtani ends up when it's all said and done, even if he even decides to come to the U.S. this offseason, because if he decides to wait until age 25, his payoff that he could receive could be upwards of $200 million versus, the $5 or $6 million he could receive this season. So he's in a very interesting dilemma right now. Does he want to make an instant impact in the major leagues now, or does he want to wait for that massive paycheck? We will see. Moving forward, I think I would wait for the paycheck. I don't know about you guys. I mean, $200 million is a lot of money, and you're set for life. Your kids are set for life. Your entire family is just set. So, going to be very interesting to see moving forward how that goes about. So, Nate, I'm gonna take a back seat here for this week's Ride the Bus because you have choice words for our Ride the Bus recipient this week.
Yes, finally I get to do a Ride the Bus segment. This is nice. So, riding the bus this week is former U.S. men's national team manager Bruce Arena. And Bruce, the reason you're riding the bus is because you decided to go onto the Fox broadcast for the U.S. men's national team friendly against Portugal. And there are really a couple things that I got to say about this. First off, I do not blame Fox for asking Bruce Arena to come on the broadcast because that's must-see TV, because American soccer fans are going to tune in because they want to know what this guy has to say about the obvious failure of the U.S. men's national team not qualifying for the World Cup. So I do not blame Fox. But I think Bruce, and, Bruce's agent, just the people around Bruce, I think that, you got to have more self-awareness than this to go onto the broadcast a month. It's only been a month, really, since that disastrous night, October 10th, 2017, in Trinidad and Tobago, a day that will forever be ingrained in my memory and in the memory of American soccer fans across this country. I think that for him to go on the broadcast, I think was just an absolute disaster for him. And also some of the stuff that he said on the broadcast, that they're players who aren't slipping through the cracks, that the soccer system isn't broken. I mean, it was just how delusional can you be? How out of touch of reality can you be? How honestly insane can you be? Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I think that defines who Bruce Arena is. Doing the exact same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Bruce, you shouldn't have gone on the broadcast. So, Bruce Arena, ride the bus.
Bruce, we need to have a heart-to-heart. Brucey boy, like, you've overstayed your welcome. I mean, I don't understand why anyone would look forward to hearing you talk ever again. Thanksgiving dinner is going to be rough for you. You're going to see your family, and they're going to think, man, this guy, Bruce, you're gone.
Like just think for a second. I think that the fact that Bruce Arena went on the broadcast shows a fundamental problem with American soccer. Do you guys think that the former manager of Italy is going to be going on any Italian football broadcast, or the manager of the Netherlands is going to be going on any Dutch football broadcast? No, because what happened to the Netherlands, what happened to Italy is a national embarrassment, and it's an embarrassment here. But the fact that Bruce Arena, a month after that failure to qualify for the World Cup, is on the broadcast and is pretty much acting like, oh, there's nothing wrong, nothing to see here. I think shows the fundamental problem with American soccer, that we don't hold people accountable for their failures.
There you go, Nate. Yeah, let him have it, Nate. Oh yeah, just. Oh my gosh. So, Bruce Arena, ride the bus. Just Thanksgiving dinner is going to be rough. I think Matt put that very well. So,
food's not going to taste the same.
It really isn't. So, here at USD, Nate, there's a few games that you're looking forward to watching this week.
Yes, I am. Just a quick update of what's been going on here over at the University of San Diego. So, volleyball finished up their regular season with a sweep of the University of San Francisco. It is their 12th straight win, and I believe their 10th straight sweep. So they're flying high. For football, defeated Marist 35-7, and became the first team in Pioneer Football League history to post back-to-back 8-0 seasons in conference play. They've won 21 straight conference games, 31 straight 31 straight home conference games. And they're now going to head to Northern Arizona this Saturday for their first-round playoff matchup. And, things are going really well for football. They won I think that this Pioneer League Football League title was their fourth in a row. And I think they're like sixth in the last 7 years, so that's pretty insane. And then basketball defeated Norfolk State on Saturday, 71-62. They're now 3-0 for the first time since the 2013-2014 season. So Lamont Smith clearly has things going in the right direction. And they take on Arkansas Little Rock tonight, Monday night at 7 p.m. So, if you're on campus, come out. Come out and support the boys. They are definitely on the right track.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks for updating us with everything that's going on this week here at USD. Matt, what are you looking forward to watching this week in the world of sports?
It's more like, what are we looking forward to?
Yes, that's right.
Friday afternoon, Black Friday. People are going to be shopping, but we're not going to be. We're going to be watching the Ducks and the Jets. Finally getting out to a game this year. Super excited. But I think from now on, I'm just going to be watching for Neymar transfer rumors to Real Madrid. Because as we know, like LeVar Ball, we're never wrong on the show. We talked about Carlos Beltran retiring before MLB Network did. So we're obviously unbeatable. So I think if this ever happens, we'll just cement our legacy as being the greatest sports talk show ever.
What about you, Nate? What are you watching this week?
The Comeback Kid, your number one source for breaking news across all sports. But
yes.
What I'm going to be watching this week is this Saturday is the game, as it's called, Michigan against Ohio State. And dear Lord, the only thing that I want, please God, is just a victory over Ohio State. Michigan has beaten them 3 times in the 21st century. So please, God, please let us beat Ohio State. This is all I want. What about you, Ben? What are you going to be watching?
I will be watching Liverpool versus Chelsea this upcoming Saturday. 2 top drawer Premier League sides going head-to-head this next Saturday. It's going to be an exciting day at Shakespeare's Pub and Grill down in Mission Hills. I'm not sure all of us will be there, but if you at home want to try out Shakespeare's and not have to hear our annoying voices, just go there this weekend. It's going to be a great night. So that's it for us. I don't need to go through the motions of saying all that logistical stuff anymore because we have a brand new outro that is also paired with our intro. So great stuff, you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to us this week, and have a very happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We will return next week at Monday at 9 a.m. We will see you then. Have a great week, everyone.
Check us out at USD Comeback on Twitter and Facebook, or search The Comeback Kid and give us a listen on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/ComebackKidUSD. And for those of you listening on Facebook, Twitter, or SoundCloud, we broadcast live every single week at 9 a.m. on the USD radio station, which can be found on the TuneIn Radio app. TuneIn is available on both Apple and Android app stores. Once you download it, just search USD Radio, favorite that page, and you'll have access to USD Radio wherever you go. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next week.